Alison Wearing is a Canadian writer, performer, and a facilitator of Memoir Writing Inc., an online program that helps people transform their personal stories into memoirs. Her writing has won a National Magazine Award Gold Medal, a Western Magazine Award First Prize, and she has been a finalist for the Journey Prize, long listed for the RBC Taylor Prize, and shortlisted for the Edna Stabler Award for Creative Nonfiction, and also selected as an Indigo Top 50 pick. And her books have become national bestsellers. She has won numerous theatre awards, which include Best Dramatic Script at the New York City's United Solo, the world's largest festival of solo theatre. Also, she is a devoted hiker, yogi, dancer, color enthusiast, and cultivator of laughter. And as we prepare to delve into our conversation with Alison on the topic at hand, becoming author of your own life, here is an exciting twist. Let us tickle the brain of our guest. So, Alison, get ready for a rapid fire round of random words. I'm going to mention a few of them, and I would love to hear the first thing that comes to your mind in response without thinking much. Are you ready to dive in?
I am ready.
Let's get started. And here comes my first word: curiosity,
Creativity,
invention,
spontaneity,
future,
past,
book,
inner world,
movie,
outer world,
place,
presence,
okay, name,
moniker,
animal.
hedgehog.
Oh, wow. Last one is the world.
Mystery.
Nice. I love your creativity and spontaneity as well. Really appreciate you participating in the first rapid fire round so sportively, Alison. And
Pleasure.
So, folks, welcome to the Guiding Voice podcast series, where we embark on transformative conversations for a better future. I'm your host, Naveen Samala, dedicated to making the world a better place through valuable discussions that add value not only to your life but also to your career. And thank you so much for tuning in. And Alison, hearty welcome to the Guiding Voice. Super excited.
Thank you so much. I'm
today.
delighted. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
Same here. And let's dive into our conversation. Let's begin with your success mantra, as in you can probably share the top 3 things that have contributed to your success so far.
A meditation practice would be one, which is an unusual thing to say for a writer and performer. But one of the challenges that writers and performers have, I think, is staying present both in the practice of their work, so showing up at your desk day after day, and also stepping out onto the stage requires a discipline. And meditation has been central to that for me. So that's definitely number one. Number 2 is yoga. For similar reasons, I don't actually consider the two separate. They're two arms of the same body for me, but we in the West often separate those two things. And so it again is a practice of presence, but also strength, flexibility. And then my yoga of choice is Kundalini yoga, so the Yogi Bhajan form of Kundalini yoga. And what I appreciate so much and what that has brought so much, what it has brought for me has been a feeling on the mat of being taken well beyond what I thought I was capable of and what I felt the sort of stress that I could manage was. And then I remember, I'll never forget the moment when it became clear to me, in Kundalini yoga, you're repeating for a long, long, long time, things that in a regular sort of hatha practice, you might do once, or you might hold the posture for 20 seconds or something. In Kundalini yoga, you're doing it for 11 minutes or something. And I remember the moment it came to me that I realized, oh, this has nothing to do with muscle. This has actually nothing to do with me efforting and forcing and finding this strength within. It's actually all about surrender, and something opened in me, which I have been drawing on ever since. That was just a revelatory moment. So that is number 2. And then number 3, I would say, as far as, success is an interesting word in and of itself, we all define it differently and we see it differently. I consider success a joyful life. And so the other, the other piece of that, I suppose, is just has been identifying what that means to me. And allowing success to be defined on my terms, and celebrating what it is that brings me a joyful life, whether that, in an overt way pushes my quote unquote career along, or whether it's something actually that just nourishes me and nourishes other people. I think that that sense of service has been really central to my feeling of success.
Wow. Very nice. And this is the unique perspective that I have received as a response to this question. So far, I've interviewed over 400 guests in the span of last 3 years, but this is really unique. And I resonate with you on the joy of the success, because many times we focus on the destination part of it and without enjoying the journey. And also we have to define our own path to success, what it means, right? So that is so powerful. And now let's talk about the core of today's conversation, which is about how does a person become the author of their own life? Again, not being influenced by somebody else, or not adapting the herd mentality or peer pressure, social stigma. I think there are many factors that influence somebody's life. But I want to hear from you. How can someone become their own author of their life?
So the work that I do, that I've come to do, is facilitating memoir writing. And I began to do it in my own life, both as I would write one-woman plays about elements of my life, but I also I've written 3 books that are classified as memoirs. And in that process, in the process of helping other people write their stories, their personal stories, I watched something quite remarkable happen, which was that as people set the stories of their lives down in their own words, from their own perspectives, with their own voice, a number of things happened. One, the story separated from them slightly, in that something that they used to feel defined them was suddenly not necessarily something that defined them. Because what's interesting about things that we feel define us, they also limit us, because they are by definition a defining quality, or even a label. No, even me saying I am a writer, being a writer actually was an obstacle to me getting on the stage and performing. It was only the moment I set that label down that I was able to realize, wait a minute, I am actually equally comfortable on stage, and I love doing this. I'm not just a writer. And so when people set the story down on paper, they have a similar kind of, I've found in my experience, a similar sort of revelation and an unexpected liberation from the story. You would think that by writing about it, you'd be steeping yourself deeper in it. But the moment you write it, it's suddenly a version of it is outside of you. And now your job as the writer is to shape the story, to understand the characters in the story. And one of those characters is you. So suddenly you're looking at yourself, at your life, at this story with a certain perspective. And you might call it a similar perspective, or a similar remove that you get when you meditate, when you are able to be the observer of your actions, your emotions, your responses. Similarly, when you're the writer of your story, you become the observer of it. And that alone brings a perspective that you didn't have at the time of living it. And memoir writing is not just, here's what happened to me. In order for memoir writing to be successful, the question becomes, here's what happened to me, and here's why it mattered. Here's the meaning that I now make of this story that I didn't make of it at the time. Because we cannot change what happened to us. And often the stories that ended up sculpting us in some way, forging us, making us the people we are, often they're the difficult stories. They're not the times when everything went really well. Those weren't the moments that challenged us and forced us to find an inner strength or something that would get us to the other side. And often our experience, so we cannot change those things. But we can change the perspective we have on them. We can change the meaning we decide to make of that event. And we can change our perception of the event when we look at it from this distance. And in so doing, we shift we can shift the narrative of our own lives. We don't, as I say, change what happened, but we change the meaning we make of it. And it's a tremendously empowering shift, that. And when we do that, we realize I actually get to write the story of my life. I become the author of my life. I accord the meaning of that event or those events. I decide what is on the other side of that. I decide the voice that is going to tell this story and who that event or those events has made me now. And memoir is at its best when it's also generous, when there is something on the other side of the story that the author has lived and gained and seen, some sort of wisdom, strength, insight that they are now offering to the reader. And the reader may not have a similar life story, but they will have challenges in their own lives, because we all do, because that is the nature of life. And that is what a reader now takes away.
Yeah. So now let's assume we are writing our own story and memoirs. Can it change our relationship with not just with the past, but also the future?
Yeah, that's the interesting thing, is actually by writing the past, we turn around. Because there's an element of liberation from the story when we write it, we're now not rooted in that past story. That past story is not replaying itself in different versions in our life over and over again, which so often we find ourselves doing, often unconsciously or subconsciously. We seek out what feels familiar in an effort to understand it. And that is why so many people end up in relationships with people who are like their parent, or, the very thing they don't want, they find, that sort of thing. But as with anything, the more conscious we become of it, the more light we shine on it, the less power it has over our subconscious. And so the more able we are to make conscious decisions with that knowledge, with that wisdom, with true insight. And so it does then affect how we see our future. Any shift we make into the understanding of our past, it's almost holographic. It's as though it now sheds a pattern of light onto our future.
Yeah, got it. And also you say that until we write our stories or traumas continue to write us, right? Can you also explain this to our audience?
Well, yeah, I alluded to it a moment ago when I said we tend to seek out the familiar. And when something is playing in us, when a trauma is unexplored, when a story is still living in the depths of our subconscious, when we are not actually, we might remember the event, but we may not have explored the meaning of it or the motivations of the other people in that situation that would help us soften our relationship to that story, or have a certain compassion and empathy for members of that story, including ourselves, that we didn't have at the time. We can be as hard on ourselves as we can on other people, and we can take responsibility and blame for events that happened long before we were old enough to have any responsibility for those things. And when that just lives in us at a subconscious level, we do tend to play it out again and again and again. And so what I say is, until we write our stories continue to write us, in that they motivate decisions that we're wholly unaware that we're making, or we don't really understand why we make them. And that's why people say, well, I just have no idea how I ended up here, or I can't believe that I did this, or part of me wanted to do this, but another part just had to do this, and so it's that lift into consciousness of the things that are driving us that then allow us to make different decisions and to see ourselves differently.
Got it. And let's move ahead and talk about the traveling part. Nowadays, we are seeing many people exploring these solo travels. And do you think like traveling is another way to understand one's story?
Yes, and it's becoming tricky now. I was just telling my son when I was young, when I was his age, in my 20s, traveling was the most progressive thing to do.
Yeah.
To get out of your familiar environment, to explore the world, to just expand your horizons. So I did a lot of it. I traveled to all sorts of places, from the Amazon rainforest to Iran to the former Soviet Union to I lived in Czechoslovakia just after the revolution. I had lots of fabulous experiences, and each one, allowed me to see my own culture and life from a perspective, of course, that I did not have before. But I think even more so, humbled me and developed in me a compassion and connection for people whose cultures and ways of being were so very different, and who taught me so much about just life and what really matters, what truly to value in life. The places that were the most difficult were also the greatest teachers. And that I think no question that value continues, but it's just now more difficult. I think we're more conscious of our effect as travelers on other cultures. I always tried to be very careful about how much I disturbed the environment I was walking into. But even if I was trying to be careful, there's no question that I still made inroads into some places that had very few foreigners there before. And so I can't say I regret doing it, but I have a certain sadness about that, and a certain responsibility about that. And so I have really tried to be careful when I have written then, because I've started as a journalist and travel writer. When I was writing about other places, I made every effort to just sort of get down on my knees in the most humble, greatest position of humility, I guess, when I wrote about those. And I was successful or not. That's for other people to judge, but that was my intention. And ideally, that's what travel does, is it humbles us.
Yeah. Got it. I think we will get some cross-cultural exposure, and moreover, there is a lot to learn from people. And especially we are dealing with strangers and whom we have never met in our lives, and it is going to make us a better person. That's my understanding. And with that, let's move to the next question. And this is about your book, like Confessions of a Fairy's Daughter, Growing Up with a Gay Dad. Can you share a brief snippet of your book, what audience can expect or readers can expect from it?
Well, nowadays it's not so unusual to have a gay parent, but in the 1970s, not other dads in the neighborhood were doing that. So it's a story of that discovery. It is told in 4 parts. The first part is the way I saw it as a young child. So I was 12 when my dad came out, which was a difficult age when you're just walking into adolescence. And I suddenly had to make up all of these lies and stories about who my father was, what he was doing, why he was with other people, other men. And I'm sure that's why I became a writer, because I had to become an inventor of stories very early on just to survive. And so that's the first part of the book. The second part is something called The Way He Saw It, which was when I was midway through the writing of the book, I felt that my story, my version of the story was told, but that I still had a larger story to tell, because interestingly, my dad came out when the world was coming out, at least when Canada, the United States, Holland, Belgium, places like this were all coming out. So my family, we didn't realize it at the time, but we were part of this larger movement. And so I wanted to include that in the storytelling. And I went to my dad and said, look, I'm writing this book, and I think I need some broader perspectives. What do you think? Should I be reading novels or historical accounts? And he said, well, just wait a minute. And he went down into his basement and he came up with this box. The box had not been opened for 30 years. This is every writer's dream, by the way. In that box, we opened it up, and it was this massive papers. It was letters that he had written to friends, letters friends had written to him, newspaper clippings, diaries and journals that he had kept at the time that he was coming out. It was fascinating because this was someone in the moment trying
Mm.
to figure out what was happening to him. And he was desperate to try to keep this monster, what he felt was this monster inside him. And there was no way. Anyone wanting to understand what that feels like to be in the closet and desperate to come out, this is the words of that person in the moment. No, he had a loving family. He and my mom were great friends. He did not want to upend everybody's world, and yet it was unstoppable, this force within him. And so the second part of the book is a catalog of all of those journals and letters and diaries. And then the third part is my mom's story, which is a very interesting story all its own. And the fourth part is the way we see it now, which is how did we all turn out after all of this?
Nice.
And where are we now? And what's incredible to me is only one generation later, in Canada anyway, my son grows up and talks about his gay grandfather as though he were just talking about the color of the sky. I mean, it just is no big deal to him at all. And that is what is possible to a culture in one generation when we just love and let love.
Yeah, all are equal, like, and this is all. I think I have also promoted a lot of causes, and LGBTQ is one of them. And I appreciate diversity because there is a reason for everything and anything. That's my strong belief as well. And looks like your book is an interesting read. So for those of you who are watching this episode or listening to this episode, the link to the book is available in the show notes. So please grab a copy. And with that. Let's move ahead. And Alison, this has been an incredible conversation, but it's time for us to add some more excitement and some more spice to the episode. So get ready as we dive into a series of intriguing rapid fire questions. And this is a second round. And let us spice up the episode further. If you're ready, let's get started. Okay, let me fire the first bullet. And if you could have one gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it, what would it say?
Be kind.
Be kind. Wow. So powerful. 2 words and so powerful. And what's one thing that you are really bad at that you wish you were better or good at?
Cooking.
And can you describe yourself in just one word?
Colorful.
And what's your favorite thing about living in the 21st century?
Perspective.
And next one is, if you could have any superpower, what would it be and why?
Oh, to heal the earth. That's a great pain for me. The amount of pain the earth is in right now and the destructive forces, that would be it.
That's very nice. And with that, let me fire the last bullet out of rapid fire. What is one electronic gadget or a fantasy gadget that you would like to see or invent yourself, Alison?
Well, I want to say a gadget that pushes a button and that instantly makes forests regrow. Just them back. Yeah. That would be it.
Awesome. There is a strong purpose around your superpower answer as well as this response as well. So I wish both you get both of them, the superpower as well as the fantasy gadget. And that way our earth becomes better.
Just let me know when you've invented it.
We'll keep you posted. And with that, let's flip back to the mainstream. What will be your one piece of advice to those aspiring to become an author of their own life? Last message.
Just begin. You don't need to be a writer in order to write. You don't need to have suddenly 6 months of free time in order to do it. You don't need a little, garret in Paris in order to be a writer. Writing happens one sentence at a time. It happens one day at a time. And the only person who is qualified to write your story is you.
Wow. Kudos. Very nice. So crisp and clear. And with that, before I let you go, please share with us how is your experience being hosted on the Guiding Voice platform?
Fantastic. Just beautiful. Thank you so much. No, utter pleasure.
So pleasure hosting you, Alison. And thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you for spending your valuable time as well as sharing that amazing insights. And I really loved every bit of our conversation. And I'm sure it is going to add a lot of value to our audience as well.
Thank you. It's been a privilege.
Thank you. And it was a pleasure talking to you. And friends, that was our episode and a beautiful conversation with Alison Wearing. And before we jump into the fun trivia section, we have a small request. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast from wherever you have tuned in from, because subscribing keeps you updated on new episodes. And if you have enjoyed this conversation, please share it with at least 3 of your friends or colleagues or family members or whoever you feel like they will get benefit from the guiding voice. Let us spread the knowledge and help others grow like you. And your support means a lot. It helps us create more content for you and our growing community. So let us learn together on this journey. Now let's hop into the trivia segment. Today we had a great conversation around how to be an author of our own life. And also Alison has briefly shared about her book as an author, and she's helping many people become their own author of their lives. I thought I'll talk about a few influential and iconic female authors. And here comes the first author, Jane Austen. Jane Austen's novels, characterized by their wit, social commentary, and exploration of relationships, have left an indelible mark on literature. And her timeless works like Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, and Emma continue to be beloved by readers and have inspired countless adaptations and retellings. And the next is about Toni Morrison. Toni Morrison's profound exploration of African American culture and experiences has earned her a place as one of the most significant literary voices of the 20th century. And her novels, including Beloved and Song of Solomon, The Bluest Eye, delve into complex themes of identity, trauma, and history. And here comes the third author, Virginia Woolf, a pioneer of literature. A pioneer of modernist literature, Virginia Woolf is known for her innovative narrative techniques and introspective exploration of characters' inner lives. Works like Mrs. Dalloway and To the Lighthouse have had a profound impact on the way literature examines consciousness and the human experience. So, these three authors have made enduring contributions to literature and have had a lasting influence on readers, writers, literary scholars alike. And now it's time for me to hear from each one of you or whoever is interested. Please share with me about your favorite author and what is the best masterpiece that you liked from their writings. So that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in and also for being part of our awesome community. And friends, I would also love to share your ideas and feedback through our social media, or you can also reach out through email, theguidingvoiceforyou@gmail.com. And let us create content that resonates with you. I'm your host, Naveen Samala, a lifelong learner, and my goal is to have impactful conversations that improve not only your life, but also to your career. But not only your life, but also your career. So stay connected as we journey together. And until next time, take care, stay inspired, and remember the future holds great things because the best is yet to come. Goodbye for now, and see you all in the next episode with another wonderful guest. Take care, guys.